Hey guys, welcome back to my channel. Anastasia here. I usually speak about studies and careers in France, and in this video I would like to share with you some tips and ideas on how to find that dream apartment in Paris. If you're coming to Paris soon as an international student, you've already probably heard how complicated it is to find an apartment here. And it's true. For the past 8 years, I've lived in 4 different apartments, so I will share with you everything I learned meanwhile about resources, how much you can pay, what are your options, how to get a guarantor, and watch until the end of the video because I'm going to share with you some information on how to reduce your rent. Let's get started. Well, first, it is really complicated to find an apartment in Paris. It's true. Because everyone wants to live in Paris, there is a lot of demand and not a lot of supply and kind of a crisis of housing, so it's getting more and more expensive. Also, if you don't pay rent, it would be very complicated for the owner to kick you out, especially during winter season. So owners would be extremely careful about the tenants and checking all the documents in your file. This is why when you come to visit an apartment, it's likely that you will be 10 people around with all the piles of documents competing for that dream place. So I know you already imagine your beautiful Haussmannian apartment with a balcony and view on the Eiffel Tower, but the reality is on a student budget, you will probably find tiny studios and that are not so nice. But don't worry, here are a few tips to help you. So what are your options? First, renting an apartment or a studio. Second, flat sharing or colocation in French. And finally, you can find a room in a student residence. Renting a studio or an apartment in the heart of Paris would be, of course, the most expensive option. On average, studio in the center would cost you between 700 and 1,200 euros a month. And there's actually no maximum. The maximum is your budget because it can be even more expensive if it's a very nice area, a nice modern building, and a view, a balcony, and so on and so forth. So count on average like around 800,000 euros for a studio. Then flat sharing is a bit less expensive. You would have a room in usually a big apartment with other students, and that could cost you between 400 and 700 per room. And finally, you have student residences. You can find a room in a student residence for as low as 500 euros a month, but do not be mistaken because a lot of student residences actually offer nice apartments that are not cheap at all. How do student residences work? So first of all, do not think that the university will help you anyhow. They will not. Many universities and business schools do not have a specific residence on campus. But they can have some partnerships and they can advise you and maybe help you find a place in a student residence not so far from your campus. That was the case in ESSEC, or for example in HEC, they have rooms and apartments on campus, but many universities do not. Still, do not hesitate to ask for their help when you get admitted and you come to Paris. What are the documents that you will need? As I mentioned, you will need a whole pile of papers to make ready for an apartment rental. First of all, of course, you will need your valid visa or titre de séjour and your passport. Second, if you're a student, you will have to prove you're a student, so you will need a paper from the university or business school called Certificat de Scolarité. You will also need to have a bank account and insurance called Assurance Habitation. And then you will also have to provide a guarantor. It's not obligatory by law, so not all owners ask for it, but many of them do. What is a guarantor? It's a person who earns 3 times more than your rent and who can guarantee that in case you don't pay the rent, he or she will do it. And usually agencies and owners expect this person to be French or to at least live in France with a long-term visa. What to do if you don't have any? If you don't have a guarantor, you have 3 options. First, you can go for an agency that accepts foreign people as guarantors, for example, your parents, and those are Logis and Paris Attitude. Those are the 2 I know. By the way, this is not a sponsored video, I'm not affiliated with any of them, but I know that these agencies actually accept foreign students and foreign guarantors. But because of that, their apartments are more expensive and the prices are way above the market. Second, you can use services such as Guarant Me or Visal. Visa is a government guarantee actually that helps people in those kind of situations, like students, although who's just started working, those who do not have a guarantor. So you can try and apply and they will provide you a guarantor. And Guarant Me is a private service. And finally, as I mentioned, the guarantor option is not obligatory, it's just the owner's decision. So maybe you will find someone you know or some owner who will not require it. Now, let's say you get your papers ready. Where to look for an apartment? First of all, there are main websites that you should check out and that also give you a great indication of prices in a certain area. And those are Se Loger, PAP, or Le Bon Coin. You will have most of announcements that are in the market, you'll have them on these websites. Then there's another website called À Partager, which is specifically dedicated to colocation or co-renting. Studapart is a website for student residences, and you can find them in Paris or in the close suburbs and neighborhoods. Just be careful because actually those residences are not cheap. Rooms are standard, it's beautiful buildings, it's all modern, it's good conditions, but it's not cheap. Finally, another resource are Facebook groups. This is a great place actually. Check out first of all the Facebook groups of your university and of your promotion. In ESSEC, we had a Facebook group where people would publish subletting their apartments or leaving their apartments, and for example they would promise the owner to find the next person to come and they would be open to get a student from the same school. So there is plenty of offers there, and also some people are posting about looking for a co-tenant to do a flat sharing together. So check it out, it's a great resource. Finally, you can see a lot of real estate agencies on the streets of Paris. You know, this beautiful offices where on the facade you have all the announcements, all the apartments, and people are working inside, so you feel like you can walk in and just rent an apartment. Well, not gonna happen. Because if you're a foreign student and you don't have a guarantor, they will not even talk to you. Remember what I said about the guarantee before? Like these agencies, it's when you are stable in France, you have a stable job, a CDI, a guarantor, and all these things. So you can look at announcements and maybe try an agency in your neighborhood, you never know. But most of the time, what happened to me and my friends here in Paris is that they do not help foreign students with the rent. Finally, here are a few tips so that the process of looking for an apartment for you would be smooth, fun, and not stressful. First of all, apartments go away very, very fast. So once you saw something that you really like and that fits in your budget, just grab all your papers and run there. Because you will see there will be a line of people who would want to share that, and you want to meet the owner, you want to be the first, the nicest, and the readiest. So go there. Be available for visits, because usually that's quite complicated for people who are working, and that's maybe your opportunity. If the visit is tomorrow at 3 p.m., you just run there, make yourself available. Looking for an apartment in Paris is a whole project, and you will have to dedicate time to this. And do visits, by the way, because I had cases when I visited apartments that had nothing to do with the pictures. So yeah, definitely visit before you sign the lease. Next point, sign the contract. It's very important. It protects you against scams. It protects you against being kicked out of the apartment. And it also it's something that you will always need in France for any administrative process. You will need it for the next steps with your visa. You will need it at your bank, everywhere. So it's important to have an official paper, a contract that states where you live. Then be very careful about scams. So do not send any money to anyone that you've never met before. Do not send any caution before you visit the apartment, and so on and so forth. So there is unfortunately a lot of scams, especially for students, for internationals, for expats who don't live in France, and so on. So be careful, prioritize official agencies and websites like Se Loger. Always ask for a contract, and the more serious the apartment looks, the better it is. So be careful about your money and your documents. Another point, you will have to pay a caution, a sum of money before you actually enter the apartment, in case you break something or you do something that the owner will need to repair afterwards and stuff. And sometimes, most of the time actually, you do not get it back. because the owners or the real estate agents, they will always find a way to not pay it to you, like something about the paintings on the walls or some tiny little thing that was broken. This is why when you enter the apartment, you have to be really careful when signing a paper called l'état des lieux. L'état des lieux is a paper that states everything, all the tiny details of the state of the apartment. What's working, what's not working. Keep looking for little, tiny things that they can afterwards say that it's your fault. So be very careful, take pictures, read and reread it, and so that you will be calm when you sign l'état des lieux. And then when you leave the apartment, you will re-sign again a paper called état des lieux de sortie, and they will compare and see if you did something wrong in the apartment or not. So that protects you. Be careful about this document. And finally, as promised, there is a hack for all international students how to reduce your rent, and it's called CAF. CAF is government aid for rent. And basically, all foreign students, once you're in a student visa here in France, you have the right to apply for it. You will just have to provide details about where do you study, where are you going to live, what is your income, and so on. And you're all eligible, and you can get up to 200 or 250 euros a month. That is a great help. That's all the tips I wanted to share with you today, guys, and I hope you will find your dream apartment in Paris. You will enjoy it, and if there's something I missed or something else you want to know, you can put it in the comments. And maybe in the next video, I'll tell you about not how to rent, but how to buy an apartment in Paris. If you like this video, if it was useful for you, don't forget to like it and subscribe to the channel, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye. Finally, here are a few tips so you can rent your apartment.